You've got to be strong mentally. I've always said in my life, it doesn't matter. Physical strength has got nothing to do with your life. You've got to be mentally strong and want to tread your path and take your journey. Well, when you get on the drugs, you belong to someone else. You're someone else's slave. You don't belong to yourself. I want to belong to me. So I chose not to get on the drugs. Immediately you get on the drugs and someone gives you a cheap taste, you're gone. You belong to someone else. We've got to turn that around. Mark Spinks. I'm the chairperson and founder of Babana Aboriginal Men's Group, which in the Darug language means brother, which is what we all are. The long history of my life from Bourke to Sydney, I owe it all to my grandmother, my Aboriginal grandmother, who was a cook in the pubs in the Carrier's Arms Hotel in Bourke, where Cobb and Carr used to pull up, and she'd work 7 days a week for cockies and shearers. And if there's any food left at the end of feeding those cockies and shearers, my sister and I and my other cousins just get a feed. And if there wasn't, we had bread and fat. We used to buy fat, boil it up, throw the bread in, take it out, put salt on it, and that was your dinner. This place is a community support organisation that I started several years ago during my time working for Centrelink as Indigenous Community Development Officer. I started this with 8 parolees, and a throwaway line one day to the boys at the settlement down in Chippendale, I said, let's start a men's group next week. I turned up next week and there's 40 men waiting for me, so I knew we had to do something. The problem in my view in the business that I was working was drugs, domestic violence, the men having a sense of belonging, self-esteem was pretty low.
He has cited so many first-grade footballers as Marcus Derry Robinson.
Men wanting to do something positive with their lives, and they didn't see a lot in that area apart from the grog and the drugs. The last Friday of the month, here at this place we do men-only meetings, and in the circle we listen to the men and what the issues are, and domestic violence kept coming up. Men losing their families because of drugs and grog and then committing violence. And I find that the guys that get on the grog very heavily and binge drink are because they don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. They feel there's no hope for me, there's no future for me. They get frustrated, they go home, things are said, assault the wife, the kids run out of the house, the kids commit crime. It's a vicious circle. So we decided to try and do something about it. I'm not going to say we're going to fix the problem, but we're having a huge impact.
Babana's come up with an idea down at the wharf where we are. We're interested in starting a men's shed down there.
We're chipping away at the granite wall, and I like the fact that we are, and we continue to do that.
Oppressed people eventually internalise oppression and we start oppressing each other. Gungaloo people have been in central Queensland for 20,000 years. The first place in Australia they did an archaeological dig to prove there were people even beyond 5,000 years was our place. If we fought like we fight now, we wouldn't last 100 years. We would have killed each other. And the way to deal with lateral violence is actually go back to that. How do we resolve differences? I'm just a garden variety bureaucrat. I worked all around the country. And I said to a friend of mine, I don't do human rights. And she said, well, you've worked in Aboriginal affairs for 30 years. And anyone who works in Aboriginal affairs does human rights. So we're all human rights activists here because we want to change things. That's what we do as people. No one gets into this work because you want to keep stuff the same. You get into this work because you want to change things, because things aren't right. Someone described Australians, when it comes to racism, as like an alcoholic who won't admit there's a problem. The government's trying to manage the risk of blackfellas wasting money. So what they do is put layer upon layer upon layer of accountability. You've got to account for every cent. You need it audited. And the bureaucracy comes so bad it strangles the system. And that's what we've got. Meanwhile, blackfellas are trying to manage the risk of dying early. So what we've got to do, and we've been talking to Turnbull, we've been talking to people in Queensland, it's happening out in Western New South Wales around Bourke. We've got to put regional structures in where people have a say, where Redfern people have a say about Redfern, where decisions about Redfern are made in Redfern. In WA called Roebourne. Roeburn's pretty famous for a few reasons. One is it was in the centre of the Pilbara when all the iron ore started to be discovered. It's also really a sad place because a young fella named John Patt got killed by the police over there. He's 16 years old. It was the death that really generated the Royal Commission of Aboriginal Deaths in Custody. 500-600 people, $58 million goes into that community, and 70 service providers. 70 service providers. So guess how much money of that 58 million gets the blackfellas? Think about it. It doesn't. So our mob aren't seeing the benefits. So we've got to change that relationship. We've got to say our mob have got to be in control on a regional level. Describe a region however we want to describe it.
You go to work, you turn up today.
Everyone's got their own issues, but yeah, I enjoy coming here, just listening and that, and just helps me through, it's like therapy, you know what I mean? Had a bit of a rough childhood growing up, but since I, left Dubbo, I think I'm a bit better since I've been down here, out of trouble and working and, keeping off the drink and all that type of stuff. My brother passed away in 2006. He was a homeless bloke in Sydney and he was beaten to death. So I came down here after his funeral. I said I didn't want to go back home, so I thought I'd stay down here in Sydney, spend a bit of time with my uncle, got my own place, got work and that, and then pretty much took off from there. So